Okay, so this is Elder Council. This is probably the game I've worked most on, and I like the most. It's my favorite game out of all the games I've ever developed. Um, this game is a cooperative game for 2 to 5 players, and it's scenario based. So there's different scenarios, and they all do something different, which change the game up. Some of which have antagonists, which can be against the players. Sometimes there's players which you don't know whose side they are. Are they with the other players? Are they against the other players? There's a sort of team game, um, and it's all based around the idea that normally you are the elder council of a village, and you're trying to manage villagers and help them get through the horrendous trials they have to face. So, for an example, for the first scenario that I would promote for anybody to play is Coldest Winter because it's the basic of the base game, and it's basically about surviving the coldest winter that is for never ending and has got it's just like the snow everywhere. It's not stopped, so you can't grow anything. You have to keep everybody fed more often because they're all freezing cold. You have to burn fires. You have to keep everybody warm, etc., etc. So the way this game works is that you have villagers like these ones up here, and they have a special ability. They have a special thing that they can do. They have a special thing that they can work at. Um, but that's not the only thing they can work at. They can work at their special action, or they can work in food to produce food, and they'll produce food every turn. Or they can protect the walls and defend invaders if any invaders try and come. Or they can go and trade. Now, having people in trade doesn't really give you any bonuses because you have to take things with you to trade. But if the trade caravan gets attacked, and it can get attacked, having people on it can hold off the attackers, because if you don't manage to survive the attack, then all your stuff that you're going to trade with is gone. You can't get it back. Um, so yeah, basically players can assign the villagers to work at these 4 tasks. There's a few other tasks that they can work at. For example, at the Builders Hall, there's a thing which they can work at as well. But most of the time, you'll be sending them to work at these 4 tasks. Players can also work at these tasks themselves. However, they can't work at their personal job because players don't have a personal ability. They can't. They basically aren't the woodcutter or the miner or the writer, so they can assist instead. They can assist the woodcutter, or assist the miner, or assist the writer, or maybe the medic, or the map maker, or the blacksmith, or any of these sorts of people. And it just allows them to reroll dice. Then players have 2 actions, which they can do on like small things. They can, like for example, reorganize people. They can move people from place to place. They can set up. They can set up buildings in the Builders Hall. So, for example, they can take one of these buildings that are down here and put it to be built, which means that people have to work at it to build it. But then once it's built, players can use their action on the new building, because basically any building has an action on it. Um, so yes, and there's a number of different resources in the game, but the simplest of resources that aren't item cards, because there's a lot of item cards which are resources as well. But the simplest resources are morale, because you have to keep people happy. Because if they are happy, they'll leave. They'll feel that the village is going to crumble away, and they feel like they're going to have to leave to survive. There's food, because of course you have to feed people, and there's goods, which basically are like a trade resource, but you can also hand them out to your village to exchange for morale. Um, but however, you can't exchange morale for anything else. So it's like it's a kind of balancing act for how many of these you want to like sell, and how many of these you want to give to your villagers to make them happier. Um, if a villager is ever rolling dice and they have a wound, which is these red markers, they'll roll less dice, 1 less dice for every wound, and each villager only gets 2 dice for combat. So if they have 2 wounds, and they die at 3, by the way, if they have 2 wounds, they get no dice in combat. They are useless. They are a liability. They're really bad. This is the same for players as well. Players get 3 dice in combat because they're better at combat than normal villagers. But, again, they lose dice for every wound they have. And it's the same for working. If a villager is working at their specific job, they'll lose dice. So this writer has 5 dice at their specific job, and they need 6 pluses, but they'll lose 1 dice for having a wound. Some villagers only have 2 wounds, so they can't work properly if they're injured, for example. Right, so that's basically that. This is basic village management stuff that players will do every turn to try and keep their villager running effectively. Another thing that players can do with their action tokens is they can go on adventures, and they can form adventuring parties among themselves, and maybe go into the various different areas. So, for example, there might be a forest nearby, or there might be an old mine nearby, or there might be an abandoned village nearby. And basically, they choose where they're going to go in the adventuring party, and then they roll dice to see how many cards they draw, and then sometimes they might encounter an event which looks like this, or a monster which looks like this. And monsters are fairly dangerous in this game. So once they've done so there's each adventure deck also comes with a selection of events that go into the event deck. Now, what is the event deck? The event deck is the driving force for this game. It's probably the most intricate mechanic in this game. This is the event deck. It's one deck, but it will get more complicated. So basically, the way it works is at the end of every round, you count out the number. At the end of every round, you draw twice the number of players and cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you'll find the most prominent color and shuffle amongst that prominent color and most important color, shuffle amongst the important color, and then choose one of them. So these are all blue, but there's 4 colors. There's blue, green, yellow, and red. Blue are the least prominent, because all blue cards are no event cards. They're literally just kind of, nothing happens. It's a quiet night, a restful day, friendly drinks, a sea of stars. Nice example, there you go. One night you glance up at the stars and take a few seconds to yourself. You think whenever you're going to make it through the next year. You think if you will ever see a year with no problems again. You think if those around you will be with you still if the year does come. You think those around you will be with you still if the year does come. So these are basically all events that are kind of all flavor, but at some point you'll draw a green card like this one. And green cards will take precedence over blue cards, and they'll green, yellow, and red cards are always events. They are never no event cards. So, for example, this one is a small group of forest dwellers basically come and say that you're ruining the landscape. You must either pay us tribute, or we will attack your hunters, sort of thing. And that's not it. Like, every event card that happens has a okay, not every event card that happens. Most event cards that happen have a continuation. So, for example, you see at the bottom of this card there's an 18 down here. This is the card number. So this is card number 18 of the forest events. So like I said, if you have the forest adventure deck, you get this forest event. And then there's a 19 down here. This is the card that's added to the event deck after you've finished the event. So if after you've kind of resolved all the effects of the event, you go into the event decks, and then you look for, what was it, 19? You draw on card number 19, and if I flip this, you'll see it's another card. It says 19 is going to add another card later, but whoops, I didn't mean to do that. But you basically shuffle it into the deck, and you get it going. Now, some of these adventure paths can be quite intricate, so if I go over here and show you one of the adventure paths, some of them basically advance in a number of different ways depending on your choices, and some of them just advance every time you draw them. So for example, this one starts with you finding a black rabbit. This one, then you go on and you find that the black rabbit wants you to pay tribute to an altar, and then either if you pay tribute or not, you'll get one of these two cards inserted into the deck. So later on, you might find that the rabbit was slain by something. If I kind of mouse over this, you'll see. While wandering through the woods, one of your villagers found a black rabbit with a strangely shaped spear stuck into it. The sight is quite gruesome and seems to be the local town gossip for a while. Although the rabbit is no longer good to eat, the spear has been brought back to the town hall. Add a strange spear to the store, and add 2 ghosts from the past to the woods adventure deck. So as you can see, like this added cards to the forest adventure deck as well. This doesn't just add cards to the event deck, this adds cards to any other deck as well, so things can get quite intricate, quite interesting. There's an event which basically is a forest fire. The abandoned village which you were like adventuring with is starting to slowly disappear, and you have to try and figure out what's going on. So this is all side stuff. I should point out, this isn't even the main. This happens in the game, but this isn't even the scenario. The scenario itself is starts. The scenario itself always adds extra rules to the game, but this is the first card from the coldest winter scenario, which I talked about earlier. Basically, there's a coldest winter. You have to keep people food, and you have to get fed, and have to keep people warm. But this one's making it difficult because cold winds blow through the village, making sounds as if something restless is awakened from the clean white snow. You lose 2 morale, and you hear villagers start to mumble something about the eternal winter being the end of us. So this adds 3 more scenario cards to the event deck. So basically the scenario will continue. There's quite a large scenario tree for this event. Some of the normal events have quite large trees as well. But when you reach the end of this scenario, it will give you a win condition, and you'll figure out how you can win the game. Some of the scenarios will just tell you how to win the game right at the beginning, and some of the scenarios will have certain players know how to win the game, and not all of them, depending on what's going on. So yeah, that is basically Elder Council. There's more rules to it, and there's kind of more intricacies, like the trade deck. There's a bunch of different things that can happen in that, like highway bandits or a bear, and then depending on how many trade goods you take, there's different things that can happen. For example, if you take 1 to 2 trade goods with you at this point, you find traveling healers. They heal 2 wounds from your present villagers. So only villagers who are on with you in the caravan can be healed by that. So a number of different things can happen, and they all have different, depending on how many trade goods you take. So that is Elder Council, my favorite game of the ones I've developed so far. I'm really looking forward to develop this more.